Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Devy to Dynasty Film Room podcast. I'm your host, Matt Jackson, and with me, we've got a special surprise tonight. We've actually got the entire Matt Brothers crew with us tonight. We've got Matt Cooper.
Yes, sir.
And Matt Rupert.
How's it going, everyone?
How are you fellas doing, man? How was your Christmas break, vacation, time with family? Cooper, I guess birthday too. We can throw that in as well. How have you guys been?
Yeah, man, I have actually had Christmas, birthday, and anniversary all since the last time we were on a podcast together 2 weeks ago. So it's been a busy couple of weeks. It's been really great. My wife and I went on a cruise, which was wonderful for our 10-year anniversary. And I got some Christmas presents for the podcast. You see the little boom mic arm floating in front of me now, and a couple other little things. So yeah, it's been good, man. What about you guys?
We look real professional now, man. No, it was.
You look like you know what you're doing if you don't actually know what you're doing. So
exactly.
Well,
mine's been good, man. Like I said, I had Christmas and a birthday as well because me and Cooper happened to share the same birthday and the same name. You'd think we were twins. I don't know what's going on, but
and the same hobby.
Yeah, we went to see Alyssa's side of the family and my side of the family. So got a little bit sick last week, so that was no fun. But overall, man, great Christmas, great time with family. I'm excited to be back, all three of us, man. I can't remember the last time we've all three been on the same podcast together.
It's been a minute, that's for sure.
What about you, Rupert, man? What'd you get into?
This is my first Christmas living in Tennessee, close to like all my in-laws. Christmas was a whirlwind, getting to go and see everybody, hopping around from place to place. So it was like nonstop. So like by the end of like Christmas break, it was just like crash on the couch, like what just happened? And then so to make up for that, our New Year's weekend, we did absolutely nothing. It was wonderful.
Did any of you fellas stay up to watch the ball drop?
I actually ended up staying up surprisingly for first time in years, but we didn't watch the ball drop.
I'm a night owl. I work with college students, so I'm always up at midnight anyway. I did not watch the ball drop. I heard the fireworks going on in the neighborhood, but I was awake. I don't ever really do much for New Year's. It was just a normal night for me.
We went to bed at like 10 o'clock and we were done after that. But speaking of fireworks, man, we've got some prospects that we're talking about tonight that, man, I'd have to say that they showed some fireworks on film. I'm excited to get into it tonight, guys. We are continuing our Inside the Prospect series, looking at the running back position. And both of the guys that we're looking at, I think, can fall a little bit under the radar, guys that not a lot of people were talking about. One of those tonight is probably my favorite prospect I've scouted this year, and one of my favorite guys that I've scouted in a long time. The guys that we're talking about tonight, of course, that is Florida State's Trey Benson and Oregon's Bucky Irving. Two guys that I'm excited to dive into. And, guys, I'm going to make you guys wait just a little bit. We're not going to dive straight into Bucky Irving right away. We're going to go into Trey Benson as we start off tonight's show. 6'1", 223-pound junior. Benson was a former four-star prospect. He was the number 21 running back in his class. He started his career actually at Oregon, where the next guy we're going to talk about played for, where he didn't get much play, but eventually transferred to Florida State. Saw 905 yards rushing this year with a total of 14 touchdowns. So that was an increase on his touchdowns from his last year, man. I'm excited to talk about this prospect. The first thing that we're going to talk about, of course, is his vision and his patience. One of the traits that I think is invaluable for a running back. And I want to start with you, Rupert, man. When it comes to Benson's vision, his patience, what are some of the things that you noticed about him?
Yeah, he really didn't make a wrong move very often. I think he was, like very smart with like which holes he would hit, where he would go, really good at following his blocks. And man, if they open up lanes for him, he finds it and he's gone. Being a bigger back, like he's not a guy that could really kind of pitter patter behind the line, wait around like a Le'Veon Bell did, kind of made it running style famous, but that's not really his game. But I don't see him as being like one of those kind of patient runners, but he knows where to go. It seems like he has a very good understanding of the blocking assignments, which is really good to see because he seemed to rarely take a wrong move.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. His vision, I kind of saw the same thing, right? This whole idea where there was never a play where I was watching his film and found myself after the replay going, man, I would have taken a different cut or a different hole there. I mean, he made the right decision more often than he did, and I was very impressed with his vision. I'm going to push back a little bit on his patience, though, because at least the film that I was watching, he had a tendency to, if the hole wasn't there, he would dance a little bit in the backfield. On the games that I was watching, I don't know, Cooper, if you can speak to this. Did you see the same thing, or did you see what Rupert was talking about?
I saw dancing, and not in a positive way. To me, this was his worst area of all the traits that we're going to talk about, and I just think he was really, to me, he was indecisive. He would start out one way. It was like he was reacting instead of going into it with a plan. You want to see the running back when he takes the snap, he's done some reading of the defense pre-snap, and so he kind of knows where he wants to go, and he's got the plan in mind, and then you can adjust on the fly if things don't go well. But I would see him like start in one direction and then go, oh, there's a defender there, and then turn around, go the other direction, and just a lot of pitter pattern and dancing in the backfield for me. I didn't feel like vision was a strength for him, and patience. I don't think it was him being patient. I think it was him being indecisive. And so this was something that bothered me. I made multiple notes about it as I was writing down, play by play. I'll notice something, I'll hit pause, I'll go to my notes, I'll write it down, timestamp when it happened in the game, all that kind of stuff. And I've got multiple notes of just, oh man, not decisive enough. Oh, he's dancing in the backfield. I felt like I saw that a lot in my 2 games.
Yeah, I saw it a few times too, and that's why I made note of it as well. So it's good that we both saw that. When we talk about his elusiveness, though, his ability to break defenders down, shake tackles, that sort of thing. What did you guys see when it came to his elusiveness? I'll start with you. I'll go back to you, Cooper, when it comes to that.
I thought he was okay in that area. A little stiff, not the most wiggle in his game. He could do a nice little one leg cut. Like he was a good one cut back. If he's stretching out a zone and needs to make one cut to get upfield, he can do that. But in terms of making guys miss in the phone booth, getting to the next level with a linebacker and putting a move on him and making him miss, I just really didn't see much of it. I think, in the 2 games that I watched, I think I saw maybe one play where he made somebody miss in the hole. So I didn't think that this was a huge strength for him. And he's a power back. He's built 223 pounds, over 6 feet tall. So he's not built like an elusive type, but I didn't hate it, but it wasn't a strength either.
What about you, Rupert?
100% agree. He's not a guy that's going to be like breaking down defenders, stutter stepping, spinning out, or doing like a, pretty crazy jump cut like we saw from Blake Corum, for example. That's just not his game. And like Coop said, like he's a power back. He's a big guy. What I did see is he does have that amazing one cut ability. I think he would excel in his own blocking scheme, because he doesn't lose any speed when he makes that one cut. Like he put his legs in the ground and he gets upfield on that cut, and he doesn't lose any speed, which is pretty rare, especially for a large back like that. So I think that's like where he's going to excel. He's, like you say, it's not going to be a guy that's like in a phone booth, like chicken dudes.
Yeah, for sure. No, I saw the same thing. We're in complete agreement here. I liked his lateral agility, but maybe what I liked more was his one cut ability, because a lot of the film that I was watching, he was one cutting and go. So maybe I'm right there with you. Maybe that's what I saw that I really liked. One thing that I did kind of like about him was his burst and his speed. The film that I was watching, the 2 games, one of the things I really noticed on him, when he gets the ball, his burst is something that I actually noted as a positive for him. His ability to start fast, and if the hole is there, he hits it hard. And there was one instance where he ran off like a 70-yard touchdown, and he was actually pulling away from defenders in the open field. And for his size, being, what do we should say, 223 pounds, for his size, I think his burst and his long speed was actually a really good positive for him. But what do you think about that, Rupert?
That was his biggest strength to me. He can do the one cut not lose speed, and then he just keeps accelerating. Like, he has incredible long speed. Like you said, like safeties would be trying to get an angle on him, and then they'd end up nowhere close to being able to tackle him. And then he's got 15 yards on the guys by the time he gets to the end zone. One of the games I watched, he broke off like 2 or 3 like really long touchdown runs, and it's same story every time. Like, good blocking, able to make the cut, and then he's just gone. Really, really good long speed for a guy that's over 220 pounds.
What about you?
Yeah, we're unanimous on that. Which is cool to see because we all watched completely different games, right? I don't think there was any overlap in the games that we watched. So, in the ones that I watched, I also saw multiple breakaway runs. So it's like he gets when the hole is open for him and he sees it and he gets there, he gets to the second level quick, and then he can really break it away to the house. Saw multiple really nice runs where, I mean, that was probably all of the wow moments on his tape. For me, it was related to like, wow, he's got a lot of juice for his size. And so, yeah, I'm in agreement with you guys. I think this is his best trait. And I'm fully with you guys on that.
Yeah. And I guess we can kind of pair that into his athleticism. I mean, he's got that size speed combo that, I mean, can set you apart at the next level. I think about a guy that's got the size but doesn't have the speed. I'm going to crap on him a little bit because I didn't get a chance to while you guys were doing your pod. But Braylon Allen, right? He doesn't do what you want him to do. The same thing that Trey Benson's doing, albeit at a little less of a size. But I mean, he's got that size speed combo that you like to see that is successful at the next level. I mean, do you guys think that that's something that's going to carry him well at the NFL level?
100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, it's going to be interesting to see how NFL teams view him, what kind of draft capital he gets. To me, he reminds me a lot of a guy. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here, getting to comps, but he reminds me a lot of a guy last year in Izzy Abanikanda, who was big and fast, but not super refined and not a great pass catcher. And he went 5th round, and he's kind of buried as a backup. But I do think, like, if Breece Hall were to get hurt, Abanikanda is one of those guys that can come in and put up big fantasy numbers for whatever stretch that he is the starter. So I think Benson, it'll be interesting to see, does he get day 2 capital and he's got a chance at actually carving out a starting job, or is he more in that backup role where he produces when he comes in? I do think there's some a refinement needed in his game, but the size speed combo is certainly the most appealing thing about him.
For sure. Yeah, complete agreement there. Let's talk about something that I think arguably is one of the most important traits at the running back position. And what I'm talking about is the third down skill set. How do you look in pass protection, and how do you look catching the ball? What did you guys notice when it came to this area of his game? I'll start with you, Cooper.
Yeah, it was a small sample. He wasn't super involved as a receiver, but what I did see, I wrote down some pretty positive notes. I actually don't know if I saw like a single pass protection rep. Like, he just wasn't asked to do it very much, at least in the 2 games that I watched. But when he caught passes, I made notes that he would catch it with his toes pointed forward, ready to run after the catch. And so he did a good job of using, like we talked about, he's got good juice for his size. He catches it ready to use that juice and to get upfield quickly. Some nice soft hands, just looked natural catching it and transitioning into the run without a lot of hesitation. Some running backs, they just take a minute to reel in the catch because it's not natural for them. And that takes away from their yak ability because it's not natural. But for me, Trey Benson looked pretty natural catching the ball. So I didn't see any like splitting out or running routes or anything. I just thought the plays that I did note where he was a check down option or he was catching a screen pass, he looked really natural doing it and did a good job transitioning to the run after the catch.
One thing that I really noticed about him is he attacks the ball, right? He doesn't wait for the ball to come to him. He's not a body catcher. He'll go out and stab at the ball and really truly extend his hands to catch it. Like you said, he's always ready to make a move when he catches that ball. Something that I did notice, I saw quite a few pass protection reps on the 2 games that I watched, and he looked pretty natural doing it. Now I never really saw him get bowled over. I never really saw him on a block in the 2 games that I did. I mean, he was picking up defensive ends. He was picking up blitzing linebackers, and he was doing a really good job at it. Rupert, did you notice any of that when it came to his film?
Yeah, I didn't count a single bad pass blocking rep from him. It wasn't, a humongous sample size, maybe like 5 to 10, but they're all good reps. And then agreement with y'all that like he's a natural hands catcher. Really soft hands. He's able to lay out and kind of catch it over his head as well, which is something some wide receivers can't do. And in the game against Virginia Tech, they actually lined him up in the slot multiple times throughout the game. Sometimes he ran a kind of like a man route. It'd be a slant route, and he really just doesn't have like that, kind of quick feet to set up the slant very well. But I think he can really excel as a pass catcher at the NFL level, like running mesh routes or wheel routes or whatever it may be. I think like with his juice, like if he can run like a wheel route, like down the sideline, basically turn it into a 9 route, like he could really carve out a really nice role in the NFL.
I actually did see one example of that. He caught a wheel route like the very first play of the game against Miami.
Mm-hmm.
He took a nice, smooth looking catch and run on a wheel route. I noted that he didn't break stride at all. Like he didn't have to slow down to catch it, which means it was a good pass, but it also, just speaks to him. I mean, he's a little bit deeper down the field and he's just natural, just plucking it up out of the air in stride. So yeah, I think this is the most intriguing thing to me about him is that he has that pass catching skill set to go with his size and speed. I think that's the intrigue on Trey Benson as a prospect.
So when you look at his overall ceiling or what he could be on your NFL or fantasy football rosters, one of the things that we like to do as we close out on a prospect is we like to rank them: bench player, flex player, starter, all pro, and Hall of Fame guy. And where do you guys see this ending up for Trey Benson? Because I'm a little mixed on this. I'm torn because if he ends up in a zone scheme, I think it's a whole lot different than if he ends up in a scheme that he has to create on his own. But what do you guys think?
I think most guys are going to be scheme dependent. I think that's pretty normal. I mean, unless you're like a superstar, which I don't think he is. Yeah. The one thing we didn't talk about was his contact balance, his power, which for a guy that's 223 pounds, I was hoping for more in that department. Yeah. I will say, I felt like he ran pretty upright. He didn't really like to take the pop to the defender. He would take hits instead of dishing out punishment, and turned his back to contact a lot. Just didn't feel like he really loved contact. He did have good balance. I noticed some plays where he kind of would get hit, but he would keep his balance and stumble forward for some extra yards. So he had good balance, but just didn't run with a lot of power. Wasn't a very aggressive runner, and didn't run with great pad level. So that to me, that's a coachable thing somewhat, I think, but that's going to limit his upside, to answer your question about upside. So I think he falls to me, somewhere in the Izzy Abanikanda to Evan Hull last year, who also was a big guy who had good athleticism and a pass catching skill set. Both of those guys went day 3. Both of them are backups in the NFL. So maybe Trey Benson can do a little bit better than that, but I don't see tremendous upside here unless he really refines a lot of areas of his game.
I think for me, at best, you're hoping that he's a flex player, right? You're hoping that he can work himself into a flex spot in your fantasy football roster. As of right now, that's about all I feel comfortable drafting him at. I mean, I think Evan Hall, that type of player, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, but what do you think, Rupert?
I think I like him a little bit more, but like you guys said, like he's going to be very location dependent. Like I feel like he's going to vary on my rankings wildly based on where he ends up. So like I can go in and say like maybe he ends up being a flex player, but if he goes to a great situation, I'm like that long speed and acceleration is very uncommon for a 223-pound back. Like he can excel in this and be a really good starter in this scheme. So,
and to be honest, let's address the elephant in the room here a little bit. I mean, this running back class is not looking solid at all. So you never know.
I think it's like filled with a bunch of like mid-level guys. There's not like the top end guys, but I don't think it's completely devoid of talent. I've kind of liked a lot of pieces of what I've seen so far.
I will say with Trey Benson, I mean, and this is true of a lot of guys, and it feels like a cop-out to say like, oh, it depends on draft capital, depends on landing spot. But like, I'm not going to say that about Travion Henderson. If he comes out, like, I don't care. He's going to get drafted high. I'm comfortable projecting that. I'm comfortable saying like he's going to be a starter somewhere. Trey Benson, I just don't like if he lands somewhere where it seems like he's got like volume is going to be king for him. If he lands somewhere where it seems like he's got an opportunity, I'm going to be interested. And if he doesn't, I'm not. And that's really what it comes down to. And I don't feel comfortable at this point with his talent level saying like, oh yeah, for sure. Like he's going to go round 2 and get a chance. I would be surprised if he goes higher than round 3 personally.
Yeah,
so
no, right there with you.
Yeah. I think this class, there's going to be a bunch of round 3 to round 5 guys. And then I think, 2 or 3 of them may fall in a really good situation and end up being good fantasy producers. I'll go ahead and throw this out now. My dream scenario is for Benson to end up at the Vikings. I feel like that'd be a perfect situation for him. He can get some volume.
They don't have a lot there standing in his way. So
yeah, exactly. And I think that system would work really well with them. So
it's interesting. Well, I think that's enough talking about Mr. Benson. One guy that I'm excited to get you guys' thoughts on. Talking about guys that are kind of in the middle of the running back rankings. This guy was right there with you, but I feel like he might not deserve to be there. And of course, that's Bucky Irving from Oregon, 5'10", 195 pounds. He's a former 4-star prospect, and he was the 13th running back in his class, which I feel was a little too low for what he needed to be from watching his film. Started his career with Minnesota, where he got good run. He had almost 700 yards his freshman year running with Minnesota before transferring to Oregon. And he's put up 1,000-yard seasons both of the years that he's been in Oregon. And, man, I'm excited to dive into this prospect. Just like we did with Benson, we're going to start with vision and patience. And I'll start with you, Cooper. What did you see about his vision and his patience?
Yeah, I really liked a lot of things that I saw out of Bucky Irving in a lot of different areas. But, yeah, vision, I really loved his second-level vision. Like, he would – once he got to the second level, just the creativity that he ran with to just go where you don't expect him to go and make guys miss on the second level and find paths to make a pretty good run into like a huge run. I loved that about him. So second level vision, creativity was really, really good. I also I thought that he manipulated well. So he did. A lot of the guys we've talked about, it felt like they just followed their blocks. Go where you're supposed to go. If the hole's open, take it. If it's not, just fall forward and get what you can kind of. But Bucky Irving is one of the only guys we've scouted where I feel like he would kind of fake one way, get the defenders kind of hedging that way, and then boom, now he's going the other way. And he's opening up holes for himself with defensive manipulation, which I love. I mean, that's like advanced vision. It's not just 101, but that's pretty advanced. That's NFL type vision. And so I really like that from Bucky Irving, and it really surprised me for a guy his size, just how well he ran between the tackles.
Yeah.
He's listed 5'10", 195. He looks smaller than that. I bet when he comes to the combine, he's going to be smaller, at least shorter than 5'10". Hopefully he's at least 195 in weight, but for either way, he's small. Let's not beat around the bush. He's small. That's probably the biggest knock on him, but I was impressed with how well he ran between the tackles for a little guy.
No, well, I noticed the same thing. And what you're talking about is his ability to create on his own, right? When the blocks aren't there, he can still find a way to manipulate the defenders and gain yards he should not have gotten. And that was the same thing that I noticed about it. I mean, he has vision more vision than I think several of the guys that we've scouted so far. And I really like that. That was a huge positive for me. What do you think, Rupert?
It was by far, I think, his best attribute. Like Cooper said, like he can see like the second and third move he's going to make, and he sets it up. Like he's like, all right, if there's a safety over here and a linebacker here, if I juke this way, I'll get him to go here, and then I can cut back and then head upfield.
Playing chess while they're playing checkers.
Yeah. One of my favorite plays, on the stat sheet, it wasn't much at all. I think it was maybe like an 8-yard gain, but it was a little swing pass to him. But the wide receiver just completely whiffed on the block. And there's 3 unblocked defenders right there. And he does like some wiggle and shake and kind of sets them up and makes 2 guys run into each other. And he ends up getting 8 yards instead of getting tackled right after he catches the ball. He did that a lot. And then his ability to kind of have eyes in the back of his head and kind of see cutback lanes like 2 and 3 layers deep, start to the left and then just instinctively know like he can cut all the way back across the field. I think that he was really special in that regard. Really loved watching Bucky Irving.
When it comes to, because you just hit on it, his elusiveness, right? His ability to make guys miss, I think is a really, really solid, strong characteristic that he possesses. And I was so mad because the 2 games that I watched, he didn't really showcase his ability to break guys down in open space and shake defenders and break defenders' ankles. And I've literally put on my notes, I was like, he didn't show this on the film that I was watching, but I've watched so many Oregon games that I know that he can do this. I just didn't see it on the film that I was assigned. So I'm going to let you guys speak to his elusiveness.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of Tajay Spears last year. Like the note that I made of like the note that I made about Tajay Spears that I made about Bucky Irving as well was he almost always makes the first man to get to a miss. Almost always, which is crazy. I mean, it's just he's very hard to bring down. He's very quick, jitterbug. I mean, this kind of the elusiveness goes hand in hand with some of his athletic ability, his lateral agility, his quickness to just make cuts in a phone booth, wiggle and shake. He's definitely the most elusive back we've studied so far on this podcast. So, to recap, we've done Braylon Allen, we've done Blake Corum, Trey Benson, and now Bucky Irving. And Bucky Irving is by far the most elusive guy that we've studied. And it's just fun to watch, man. He's just spin moves, jukes, cuts, dead legs. He's got the whole arsenal when it comes to making people miss.
I will speak to one thing that I did notice that kind of bothered me a little bit. And I only saw him do it 2 times. So I'm hoping that this isn't something that he continues to do. It was just kind of a fluke thing. But when he was in the backfield and the defensive guys broke through and he wasn't able to get to that next level and show that next level vision that Cooper, you were talking about. 2 times I saw him get stood up, and because he was trying to make something happen and get out of those tackles, he ran 5 yards back into the backfield and got tackled. That's something that worries me a little bit because I don't want you on my team losing 5 yards when you could have netted 0. That it's the little things like that I think could potentially be an issue, or maybe they won't. Maybe it was just a 2-off thing that I saw. Did you guys ever see any of that?
I definitely did, and it was a note I made as well. But I don't think it's one. I think it's a coachable thing, and then just getting more reps, just like knowing like when the play's lost, just get down. I think the more times, especially at the NFL level, he's like, yeah, I can't always escape from these guys. But I think the good outweighs the bad. Like the wow plays he's able to make up for those.
Yeah, for sure agree.
I remember like Saquon had that knock on him coming out of college, like, oh, he danced around and lose, 5-7 yards trying to make something happen when nothing's there. But all the good plays kind of outweigh that. And that's basically how I felt watching Bucky Irving.
Yeah, I think I made one note in my 2 games that he ran backwards, and it actually worked for him in that instance. He ended up making a guy miss and got more yards than he would have if he had just gone down. But it can definitely blow up in your face sometimes, for sure. And yeah, if that's a consistent thing that and guys are faster at the NFL level, so a lot of times it's like what you could get away with in college, you can't get away with in the NFL, and he'll have to learn that pretty quick. Like, okay, don't go backwards. If you go backwards, they're going to get you. So, yeah, I guess we all saw at least one instance of it. So it's definitely worth noting.
Yeah. One thing worth noting, man, his burst and his long speed, and we've already talked about his quickness, right? So we're kind of going to wrap all of this up in the same thing. Man, what I watched when I saw Bucky Irving is a guy that ran with a purpose, right? A guy that, I mean, as soon as he got the ball, he was trying as hard as he could to get up the field as fast as he could. And he's got great burst. He's got great long speed. That was probably one of the biggest positives that I noticed on him. What did you guys think in this area?
Agree as well. I kind of went in like expecting like a jitterbug, but not a ton of top end speed, and he kind of really surprised me with his top end speed, which is really good to see because that's what's going to translate to the NFL, and that makes me think he's probably going to get some pretty decent draft capital. It is, and it's so great that he also has that ability to kind of like be a jitterbug and kind of make people miss in a phone booth and have that long speed.
Yeah, I think his long speed was okay to me. It wasn't like a weakness and it wasn't a strength either, but the burst, man, the acceleration was super good. Like I loved his acceleration and his burst. And that's way more important to me than long speed anyway. For me, I think when you are that small, I want you to be like a really, really elite athlete, like a Devin A-Chain this year. And I don't think that Bucky Irving is that. And that's probably going to be his biggest knock, I think, in my opinion, is that at his size, he's an above average athlete, but he's not an elite athlete. I think at that size, you want them to be an elite athlete. So the athletic profile overall is probably going to be the biggest knock on him and what may affect his draft capital the most. I would think probably somewhere between third and fifth round. I'm hoping closer to the third round side of things. But I think he's one of those guys that's just good enough that like I'm going to be interested even if he doesn't get the draft capital, because I feel like with Kyron Williams, like he's just one of those dudes that I feel like at some point he's going to earn his way on the field because he just does so much so well, and coaches are going to love him. And yeah, I think he's a really good football player. I'm a little worried about the draft capital specifically because of the athletic profile, like we're talking about.
You see, though, I'm a little less worried about his athletic profile because of his power, right? Because of the way that he runs. When I watched him, man, I kept going back to myself. I was like, this guy runs like Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is like for his size, I mean, he's 195 pounds, maybe a little less than that. I mean, this guy runs looking to hit people and looking to deliver the blow on somebody. And I mean, I love how angry, I mentioned this earlier, how he runs with a purpose. He doesn't run like he's 195 pounds. And I think that's going to really benefit him.
Yeah, I hope he can stay healthy running like that at his size in the NFL, but I totally agree. I made the exact same note. I said Isaiah Pacheco because that dude runs like somebody wronged him and he's just out to get revenge. Like, and Bucky Irving is the same way. Like he lowers his pad. He ran with consistently great pad level. And when he was about to take that contact, he didn't turn his back. He didn't try to start going down, minimize the hit. He lowered the boom on people. I mean, he always finished his runs with a pop. And I loved it. It's so fun to watch. I just worry about, 190 pounds doing that at the NFL level. Like he's going to get broken half or something. But I love, like, he's got such great contact balance for his size. He's a very physical runner. He seems to relish that aspect of the position, which not everybody does. And yeah, I love that part of his game.
Yeah. What'd you think, Rupert?
Yeah, I loved it as well. Like especially like running up the middle, like you talked about, he's really good between tackles, and he broke so many arm tackles running between tackles. Really impressive. Really good contact balance. Like you said, he's an angry runner. He's not shying away from anybody, which is really great to see. Like you said, might be a little concerning at the next level for health, but hopefully, he kind of learns quickly in that regard, like when he needs to not try and deliver a blow to.
Yeah. I mean, between his power, his contact balance, and his elusiveness, he just breaks so many tackles.
Yeah.
He's of all the guys we study, he created so many yards just on his own that weren't blocked for him. that's probably the number one thing that I like about him, is that he's a difference maker. He's not just going to go get what's blocked for him. He's going to go create yards for himself. And yeah, I mean, it just broke a ton of tackles, like you said, Rupert.
Really, I saw the same thing. Every time he went through the hole, like guys were trying to bring him down by his arms, and at some point, I was like, "Dude, stop doing that! Like, you're not going to get him down that way."
Yeah, I think the reason is because of his burst. Like the linebackers, like, oh, I can fill this hole, and then he's already through it, and they're like reaching with their arms, and they can't get him. He is a really good, compelling package to me.
Sure. And just to complete the package, I mean, his third down skill set, pass protection and catching, I think was another strength of him. I mean, I noted in the film that I was watching, specifically his catching. I mean, of course, he does what you want to. He catches the ball with his hands. He runs solid routes. He goes upfield as soon as he catches the ball. But I noticed him line up in the backfield. He lined up in the slot, and he lined up out wide. I mean, this guy can line up anywhere you want him to with the ball, and he's not just running routes and not knowing what he's doing. Like, this guy knows what routes he's running. He was running table routes. He was running Texas routes. I mean, wheel routes. I mean, he was very advanced as a route runner when it came to that position. I really liked him as a third down back too.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. I mean, he had 56 catches this year and 31 the year before that. So that's like 3 times as many as anybody else we've studied. So the production matches what we're seeing on tape. They used him as a weapon in the receiving game. It wasn't just like, oh, he'll catch a dump down every now and then. Like, they were trying to get the ball in his hands any way that they could, get him out in space, swing routes, wheel routes, like you said. So that's fantastic. If you're going to be small, I think you need to have that PPR third down skill set, and he's got it. So major check in his favor on that. And I mean, so you're running through these traits. Like, we haven't really noted much of anything as a weakness except for he's small. And so that's the tough thing, I think, is I really want him to get the draft capital because I love his game. It's just hard to overlook the fact that, a lot of these guys, even what they're listed in college, is not what they actually end up weighing in at the combine. Yeah. So I'm worried, if he goes in there and he's like 188 pounds, like that's going to be tough. That's the biggest knock on him. And other than that, I think we're kind of unanimous here. Like, we love the player. So
I don't know if it was just the games that I was watching, but I did note a couple pass block reps. And I do think that is probably due to his size. You kind of get bullied by a blitzing linebacker, but lining outside, running routes. I did notice some negatives, and it could just be the 2 games I was watching. He may have already kind of checked out of the game, like, oh, we're smashing these people. But he was running pretty lazy routes, like a clear out route or a non-route or something like that, further down the field, and he was just kind of like meandering down. He didn't really look pretty invested in the play. And then there's a couple other times when his quarterback was running for his life, and he was kind of like in the middle of the field and didn't really show any kind of urgency to break open and present a target for his quarterback. But yeah, like you said, that's the only negative I noted from him.
I will talk about his pass pro one because I didn't see a lot of pass protection, but I did see one blocking where he was going, swinging out wide, and he was blocking a wide receiver on a wide receiver screen, or he's blocking a safety on a wide receiver screen that had come down. And he starts off out of the backfield, and he just pancakes. I mean, blows up this safety. And I'm sitting there, I'm just like, yes, like it was pretty awesome. But
there's another play in a game I was watching. He's running a wheel route, and wide receiver's doing a mesh route across the field. And I guess he knew the ball was probably going to the wide receiver on the mesh, because he just headhunted that safety and knocked him out. And then the wide receiver got in the end zone because of that, sprung him open. So
I had a play just like that. I didn't, similar to what you said, Jackson, I didn't really see much pass protection. I guess because they were just using him as a receiver so much, he wasn't really being asked to pass protect, which is smart on Oregon's part. Like, you got a 190-pound back. Don't ask him to stand in there and try to pass protect against the defensive lineman. Run him out wide, use him as a weapon. So, but exactly like you guys said, there was one play I noted in particular where he picked up a block down the field for his wide receiver. So he's willing. He's a willing blocker at least. So
So, I mean, if the only thing that we're really saying is size and then potentially maybe some downfield, just nuances of route running. Um, I mean, I think we're all in agreement. This is a really, really good player and could potentially be a special player on your roster. Where do you guys project him on a fantasy football roster?
I'm going to plant my flag on Bucky Irving. I think he's going to be a starter, maybe even a Pro Bowler. I'm not even too worried about his size. Like, all he's got to add is like 7 pounds of muscle in the NFL program, and he's up to Christian McCaffrey size levels, right? And I think he has similar like long speed kind of athleticism. I agree. Like, he doesn't have like Devin A-Chain kind of athleticism, but I think he can be pretty comparable to Christian McCaffrey with like long speed, for instance. I think he'll probably test like in the low 4.4s and be really good in the shuttle runs and everything like that. So he's going to be a guy that I'm going to be targeting pretty heavily in drafts.
Yeah, I am too. And, I want to plant the flag on him as well. I'm really hoping and praying for the draft capital. I actually just tweeted about him the other day, and pretty big draft account, Bill Carroll, does a lot of draft scouting. And he said in his tweet back to me about him that most of the talk has been projections of mid-third to early fifth. So mid-third, I'm great. Early fifth, I'm big sad because he's going to really have to bust his butt to earn his way on the field at that point. I'm not going to be out on him, but I'm going to be sad. So, yeah, he's a player that I really like a lot. I think given the opportunity, he definitely, with the PPR upside for sure. Like, we've seen so much in recent years, whether it be James Cook or HN, so many others, Gibbs. You don't have to be 220 pounds in the NFL anymore. You really don't. More and more of these guys are smaller, and they're succeeding in a big way, and they're putting up big fantasy numbers. And so I'm not going to let his size make me be out on him when the tape clearly tells me he's by far the best running back that we've scouted in this class so far. And
not even close for me.
Not even close. If he was 220 pounds, we'd be talking about him as a first round pick.
Yeah.
I think he's that good. So, I think I'm with you, Rupert. He's somebody that I'm going to project as a fantasy starter for sure at the next level with upside for more than that.
No, I'm right there with you guys. This is a guy that I'm going to have probably the most exposure to in my fantasy football leagues. I love everything about Bucky Irving, and I think that if he gets that mid-third that guy was potentially, that you were potentially saying, I mean, he's a guy that when I'm watching somebody like Isaiah Pacheco that's just bulldozing people in the open field, and he's putting out some pretty decent fantasy numbers from time to time. I think Bucky Irving can be a guy that is a starter with potential to be even more on your roster.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're all in agreement. Go draft Bucky Irving. If you listen to this podcast and you like our analysis, we are unanimous. We love Bucky Irving. We think he's underrated. So
very much so.
Big Bucky Irving fans on this show here.
We've all planted our flags. Well, guys, that about does us for tonight. Why don't you tell the people where they can find you on Twitter? And I'll start with you, Cooper. Tell the people, if they're not listening to this show on YouTube, if they're listening on Apple Podcasts, where can they find these awesome video breakdowns that we're really going to start pushing out now that we're almost close to the off season?
Yeah, so I'll give a couple quick plugs here. One, you can find me on Twitter at Devy2DynastyFR. It's the number 2, not TO. And the YouTube handle is the same. So youtube.com/@Devy2DynastyFR. So if you're listening on an Apple, come over to YouTube, drop us a sub, watch the video. We're going to be putting out some film breakdowns where we show you what we see instead of just talking about it. And then the last thing I'll say just real quick, I am also the film room coordinator for the Dynasty Nerds film room. And we're working really hard to crank out hundreds of cut-ups of all 22 where you can go in and watch a full game for one of these players in under 10 minutes and see every snap that they're on the field, not just the highlights, but all of the strengths, the weaknesses. That's where we did all of our research for this show. We watched film from the Dynasty Nerds film room. So you can use promo code COOP at dynastynerds.com and get 15% off, and that will help us as a channel and help you study and prepare for your rookie draft. So
awesome. Where can they find you, Rupert?
You can find me on Twitter X at Matthew Rupert FF.
Awesome. And you guys can find me on Twitter at Devy Matt. Make sure if you guys are listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating and review. That's how people can find our podcast. We'd really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions that you'd like us to maybe potentially discuss on the show, any players that you'd like to hear our opinions on, you can tweet any one of us on Twitter. You can leave a comment on YouTube or just wherever you're listening to this podcast. We'd love to interact with you guys and have those conversations. But we are out for tonight. Until next week, we will see you guys later.
Peace.